And welcome in, everybody, to the first ever edition of Pip's Plane Spotting Live. We hope that you can hear me loud and clear. I'm going to adjust the volume a little bit so you can hear me. And we're doing a test run to see how things go. So let me know what you like, what you don't like, if it's a mess. But here we are on a very hazy, or what we like to call here in the Wasatch Front, very inversion y day. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to see some of the planes, but we wanted to get this rolling here to get people out and enjoy the Wasatch Front and plane spotting in Salt Lake City with where we're at with Pip's Plane Spotting Live. So as you can see, we'll zoom in right there on a Delta arrival headed in. Looks like from Long Beach on a E175 headed into Salt Lake City. So let me know how the stream is. The stream quality right now, we are at 1080p. So that's a 175 making its way in from Long Beach there on the West Coast. As you can see, as the 175 goes past the general aviation hangars, we're looking towards the east, if you're wondering. So sun will be setting behind us, so we won't have the sun glare in our way. But right now we are on the east side of the airport, looking towards the east. In fact, if you look out in the distance there in the haze, maybe you can make out downtown Salt Lake as we look towards the east as the old smokestacks there for the power plant. And oh, there's downtown. Nice to finally see it far away. But here we are on the east side of Salt Lake City International Airport. Airport, that is, not airport. But I hope you're enjoying the action, and hopefully this will be something to come. We're looking right now on runways 1634. So we've got a north arrival. And so we're looking at arrivals on runway 35 and also runway 34. We're high atop Salt Lake City International Airport, and welcome to the action. So hopefully I can inform, entertain for the next couple of hours, and hopefully you're hearing me all right. So obviously, I wish the weather were better, but Mother Nature likes to give us the old inversion once in a while. It's a Saturday, so it's a little bit lighter traffic day, which is perfect to kind of get things all settled in here as we are at Salt Lake City International Airport. Coming in with the arrivals, looks like we've got an Alpine Express on a Beech 1900D flying in from Jackson Hole, Wyoming on final approach, about 10 miles out. Pip with you live from Salt Lake City International Airport. Make sure you do me a favor and do yourself a favor and like this content so that you're made aware of it when we go live again. And hopefully we'll get the opportunity to go live more. Again, this is Pip, and this is Pip's Plane Spotting Live from Salt Lake City International Airport. So glad you could join us today. And even though it's a hazy inversion-y day, we can still get some good plane spotting action for you. The interesting thing, if you weren't aware, Salt Lake and Delta Airlines recently signed a long-term lease agreement that will lease the hangars here the gates at Salt Lake International Airport, I believe, until 2043. and they're doing construction on them right now. So the new Salt Lake City International Airport's about 3 years old, and there's two concourses to it as well. There's a concourse A as well as a concourse B. Now, if you've never been to Salt Lake City International Airport, be aware that if your flight is in Concourse B, you're going to have to walk a long way. And Salt Lake City International Airport has not yet completed the underground tunnel to both. But just a little side note for you. So, right now, Salt Lake City International Airport is completing construction that is on Concourse A. It'll add, I believe, another 20 gates for Delta, most likely Delta. And that'll be interesting. So here we are at Salt Lake International Airport, and I apologize for the weather. Just one of those inversiony, hazy days that we hear in Salt Lake. We kind of zoom in, we see that arrival that we mentioned before. The old Beechcraft 1900 from Jackson Hole, zooming in right there on its arrival onto runway 34 right. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is our first ever entrant into the plane spotting live market, and we really appreciate you tuning in. And we'll make this a common theme here as we're in Salt Lake City and get you some action, some good plane spotting action. So that was just coming in Beechcraft 1900 from or from Jackson Hole up there in Wyoming, a popular skiing destination. And that's not something we necessarily see a lot of, but very cool to see the Beechcraft 1900 still rocking it. So we've got 3 departures right now here on the east side of Salt Lake City International Airport. We're looking at Delta Flight 3522 now, just taking the runway on a 175, headed to Ontario. We've got Salt Lake City, Long Beach on a 175 Delta Connection flight. Most of these flights you'll see Delta are run by regional airline SkyWest. And so when you see these 175s, also Delta 3996 behind the Long Beach flight there, flight 3714. So 3996 going Salt Lake City, Burbank. So we've got a California trio of going to Ontario, Long Beach, as 3714 takes the runway, and also Burbank. So pretty cool. Salt Lake City is, for those who don't know, is one of Delta's major hubs and is very popular with the skiing destinations. For most people who don't know, Salt Lake City is just a short 25-minute drive to Park City, one of the best skiing destinations in the world, and of course, home of several of the skiing events in the 2002 Olympics. Now, one of the things we're going to try here today is see how long the battery life lasts on my camera. And if not, we'll get a charger or a new battery, so we'll switch it out. But this is sort of a test runs here as we kind of get things going here and help enjoy some broadcasting from plane spotting here in Salt Lake City as 3714 gets ready to roll down the runway there. I can catch up to it. Wants to run away from me. So sorry about that. So we've got a lot of regionals departing in the next 10, 15 minutes here. There you can see a CRJ 200. I know everybody's favorite regional jet that is basically about the size of a small living room. And if you're bigger than 5'8", it's going to be a problem. But that CRJ is departing to Butte, Montana on 4230 Delta Connection flight. In the meantime, while those Delta Connection flights are departing on runway 34, we've got inbound just in the next 5 minutes. Looks like they're going to send that flight from John Wayne to runway 34 left on the other side of the airport. So where we're at is located in the parking garage. And so we're pleased to give you some visibility, good visibility here at the airport. It's just after 3:36 local time. I am Pip, and this is the first edition of Pip's Plane Spotting. We'd love for you to like and comment, and any questions you might have about Salt Lake City International Airport, and we'll answer them when we can. But coming up in the next half hour, we've got arrivals tapering off until about just after 4 o'clock, but inbound that most likely will arrive on runway 34 right or runway 35 is Southwest 1109 from Houston, should arrive approximately 4:15. Then you've got Minneapolis, Delta 1215 from Minneapolis on a 321 arriving at about 4:06. And then we've got some traffic, a lot of traffic from the West Coast headed on runway 34 left. So we'll have a lot of departures conversely. And we'll talk to you at the top of the hour about your upcoming arrivals in the next half hour. And now we've got some departure traffic. You see that United 175 there being towed. That is one of SkyWest planes. And a lot of SkyWest's planes, if you don't know, SkyWest is the largest regional airline in the United States. They run flights for United, Delta, Alaska, and American Airlines. As you see, Alaska flight there. I'll give you the number on that one. Alaska 3317, operated by SkyWest, headed to San Francisco on a 175. But yeah, as I mentioned, as you were seeing that United plane being towed, that's where SkyWest will park some of their planes in the overnight. It's here on the south end of the airport. You can see 3 of those Delta 175s from SkyWest being parked there. And we're looking east right now. If you're just joining us, you should usually be able to see the mountains, but today we've got an inversion that's creating some problems for us that limits the visibility. And if you're wondering what an inversion is, basically what happens is in the environment, because Salt Lake City is in a valley from the mountains, basically what you have is you have warm air aloft higher up. And as we know, warm air rises. And so the warm air is kind of creating an insulated layer, because lower down below, we have cold air. And as you know, cold air sinks. And so that's going to create the inability for any pollution, any air particles to really drift up into the atmosphere and create better visibility. So that's kind of what we're looking at with our inversion today. And they say that we should have a rain snow mix tomorrow. And right now, I came by today because of light north winds that are favorable to the arrivals, which are a little more favorable if we're looking at arrivals from the south headed north into Salt Lake City. Gives me good visibility from the parking garage. So if you're just tuning in, this is Pip broadcasting live on Pip's Plane Spotting. We are excited to have you on board, and we'll make this hopefully a weekly broadcast from Salt Lake City International Airport, as well as other airports. So we kind of pan over here. We're looking at Delta Connection flight getting ready to depart. As the Alaska Flight 3317 takes off. Delta connection flight 4006, Salt Lake City to Palm Springs right there. And then coming into your picture is one of my personal favorite planes is the A220 100 going from Salt Lake City to San Francisco on Delta flight 2443. Now we're still kind of testing things out, so I apologize if I accidentally get in the way, but appreciate you tuning in. Next up, we've got 321 from Delta 906 headed behind that 220. Delta 906 headed to Detroit. Delta's hubs, if you're just tuning in from across the globe, Delta's hubs include Detroit, Minneapolis, LaGuardia, New York, LaGuardia Airport, I guess technically JFK, but also Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, and of course the busiest airport in the entire world, Atlanta. So weather today was pretty good. Um, temperatures are about 40 degrees today, upper 30s. We haven't had snow in a week or so, so we still have plenty in the mountains. In fact, it's been one of our best years in recent memory for snow as we focus in here on that Delta 321 about to take off. Now, if I had to guess on the Delta flight headed to San Francisco on the 220, they've been put in the penalty box due to flow and overhead traffic. So they may wait a few minutes to get off the ground due to ATC spacing and whatnot into San Francisco. That would be my guess. So this Delta flight heading to Detroit on a 321. So that is headed off to Detroit. Safe travels to them. And if you're tuning in, this is Pip live from Salt Lake City International Airport, looking east towards the runway 34 and runway 34 right, and also runway 35. So the sun, of course, faces to the west, so we're going to try and get you out of the way of that sunshine. Oh, good question by Beef Enchilada. Thanks for that question. Yeah, so we're going to put out some more dispatch videos. In fact, I've got a video that I'm editing right now talking about the pilot uh, relationship, the pilot dispatcher relationship. So, yeah, dispatching is going as well. Although I am taking a break to Beef Enchilada that makes me hungry, but taking a break to pursue my MBA. So I can. Also, education's the thing you never get tired of, and there's always something about working in aviation that you want to learn more. So right now, I'm taking a break from dispatching and left in December, and pursuing the MBA right now at the University of Utah. But I do actually have a couple of interviews for aviation jobs coming up this week, so I won't tell too much more on those, but we're going to still be putting out dispatcher videos. In fact, I was just talking with a dispatcher at Breeze Airways about doing some videos. So look for that video on the dispatcher captain relationship, probably be coming out in the next week, Beef Enchiladas. So thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for subscribing to the channel, and we'll get more videos out there for you. So tune into that. So thanks for the question, and feel free to ask any questions. Uh, Thanks, I appreciate it, and we'll get going on those videos. The biggest challenge is sometimes with the dispatcher job is getting permission to film inside like the NOC or the Network Operations Center because there's a lot of security sensitive things. So it can be a challenge sometimes to interview people and then also to get inside the NOC. So we're going to try or the different airlines call different things. So you've got the NOC and the SOC. Each airline's got a little bit different names. So we'll see if we can work on that. And we're trying to work on that. And I know I am. So looking, departing right now is Delta 2055 headed to Salt Lake City, or excuse me, from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas. So that new concourse is the Delta 2055 sneaks behind as you see my shoulder. So I'll get out of the way there. That is the new concourse extension at Salt Lake City International Airport, in case you're wondering. So we adjust and head back to the edge of runway 34 right. I want to give you good action. So we'll keep moving back and forth. This taking off now is flight 2116, 737 800, headed to Seattle. Delta runs three variants right now of the 737, the 700, 800, and the 900. The 900 is their most popular version that also Alaska will run as well. They I believe are committing right now a lot to Airbus, and we'll talk a lot about a lot of aviation related things. So, Beef Enchilada, you bring up a good point. What we're going to try to do as we get more comfortable with these videos, is talk about dispatching within the confines while we may wait on arrivals, so that we can better inform and also educate. So, we'll try and do that as well. So, the camera right now is looking towards. If you look you are looking at a giant I don't want to call it a smog, but it really is, for all intents and purposes, a smog um, cloud. And what we've got here is what's called an inversion along the Wasatch Front. And it's been this way for about 4 or 5 days. Basically, what happens, I talked about it a few minutes ago, but if you're tuning in for the whole stream right now, it's going to be dependent on our battery life. So I'm guessing I got about 2 hours here. So we're going to try and push it to 6 o'clock. And we'll probably have to get another battery and take a brief word from our sponsors and put on the broadcast back in. But as I was saying about the inversion, basically what happens is you've got warm air aloft, above us. And so the warm air is creating kind of like a blockade for air movement, because what we've got down low is cold air. Colder air. I know it's weird to think about. We've got colder air down below, and if you know anything about the mechanics of air density, cold air is unable, doesn't rise, it sinks, right? And so it's unable to penetrate and get above that warm layer. So what we need is a good wind change, some precipitation, which we may have tomorrow. So we should have clear conditions on Monday. It just gives you a little background on the inversion situation. So while we're waiting, we'll update you at the top of the hour on what arrivals are coming in and what we think is going to arrive on runway 34 right and runway 35, because that's what we're looking at. In fact, I'm going to tilt a little bit to the right here, a little bit further. So what we're looking at right now, as we look at an Airbus, I'm guessing that is one of our international departures, either headed to Paris, Amsterdam, or London. We do have daily nonstops to those three destinations for Delta. So this one actually is a A330 900 that is headed to Kauai in Hawaii. So that's the newest version of Delta, and I haven't seen, me personally, haven't seen them run the 330-900 to Hawaii. So that's pretty cool as that prepares to take off. So we'll kind of focus in on that because I do love the new Neo, especially with the raccoon-like skin on the windshield as it makes its way. Also, we're going to talk about obviously aviation, a lot of things, all things aviation. So whether it's mechanics or dispatching or piloting or what have you, we're going to talk about a lot of those things. So it's just me up here as we look at this Delta flight headed to Hawaii on the A330-900s. And like I said, I love the skin outline on the cockpit, but also the engines are much bigger as you see, which is one of the unique things we'll talk about is just the engine side. So, oh, sorry, still getting used to the camera work. As it sneaks behind the concourse there in concourse A. So, as I was saying, one of the things that we look at when we look at the Neo is really two things. The Neo stands for new engine option, right? For those who have some aviation background, the new engine option. And basically, the new engine option for Airbus is about creating greater efficiency with performance and also range. And if you look at if and we'll take a look at it, but if we take a close look, if you have a chance to see one of the new Neos, whether it's a 320, 321, or a 330, or even the new A350, what they've done, and just like Boeing, they've increased the diameter, right? The engine size. And the simple mechanics, and I'm not an airplane technician, as we look at Southwest flight getting ready to depart, that'll be Southwest uh, 457 headed to Denver. But if you look at the mechanics, simple mechanics of the A330 engine, for example, on the new engine option, the diameter is much larger, which means when you initiate the performance of that aircraft, you are intaking more air. And if you know anything about, mechanics of air, the more air you're able to pull in on that engine, the more performance, the greater amount of thrust you're able to generate because you have what? You have more air or more density to work with in the basic way. So when those fan turbines turn, they're taking in more air. And when we could take in more air, our performance goes up, right? If we think about it too, if we're trying to run a mile. Um, and so the great thing about the new engines is they're much larger in diameter. They're able to create more power, but also at cruise use less fuel because they're able to generate more with less, if that makes sense. So that's the rudimentary dispatcher version, but I think it's really awesome to look at. And so I hope if you get a chance, if you see a Neo on Flight Radar or Flight Aware, look at the engines and see the difference versus the old generation of Airbus. So this is Southwest Flight 457 getting ready to depart here on the east side here on runway 34. Oh, so you know the big old GE90s beef enchilada. I'm guessing with those 777s, which got to be awesome. The GE90s, those are legendary. That's pretty awesome that you work for FedEx. Are you a ground or whoops? Looks like I got a Delta 320 arriving on runway 35. Now, this is our first broadcast here live and expanding the offerings for aviation enthusiasts. So we thank everybody for tuning in. And so if it is annoying if we do the pan and follow the planes on takeoff and arrival, we can fix it. I'll fix that and we'll just stay here stationary and you can see the action coming in and it is kind of adjust things. I'm going to see if I can put that a little bit higher. Oh, nice. So you do the weight and balance. So are you load master then, beef enchilada? That is a challenging job and definitely you would be a great fit, kind of fitting into the dispatch. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at that. So awesome. That's awesome. And so that means you're very involved with the aircraft themselves. So one of the things about being a dispatcher that surprisingly, some people may not know is, and you've seen from our past videos, is we sit in an office, right? We sit in front of a bunch of computers, and we don't get a whole lot of action with the planes themselves until we go on our fam or familiarization ride. So, but that's awesome, beef enchilada. Thanks for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, it is 3:57, so we'll hit the top of the hour here as we've got a JetBlue departure going past our screen. That is JetBlue flight 872 headed from Salt Lake City to JFK, so the transcon on an A320. Still waiting for the day when they start operating those, maybe with the A220-300s. Still waiting for that day, though, because right now they do the A320. Oh, look at that. Got a C-117 just making our way into the picture. So let's zoom on that sucker. Can't help it. I love this plane. That's pretty cool. Typically, for those who aren't aware, Salt Lake City is also the airport is also home to the Utah Air National Guard. So you'll typically see the KC-135, the tankers, but that was pretty cool to see 117. So here we are at the top of the hour, and let's go back to the arrivals. What we're expecting in the next half hour that we should see on runway 35 or runway 34. Taking a look at the shot sheet, we should that Houston flight Southwest 1109 on a 737 should arrive in the next 20 minutes, along with Minneapolis from Minneapolis Delta 1215 on a 321 should arrive in the next 10 minutes. And looking at everything else, Atlanta Delta flight 423 and a 321 should be arriving in the next 10 minutes as well. And Chicago from Chicago O'Hare Delta 2734 on a 319. as well as Denver Frontier 9 or 571 from Denver. Frontier 571, excuse me, should arrive in the next 20 minutes at 4:20. And that kind of brings us back to the bottom of the hour. So we'll give you next update in about 20 minutes on what's arriving. So here we are, Pip, at the top of the hour, 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. If you're just tuning in across the globe, first edition of Pip's Plane Spotting Live at Salt Lake City International Airport. And just wanted to make sure, see if we can hear you okay. Let me know if there's anything you'd like to see at Salt Lake City International Airport that we can make happen for you. We'll see what we can do. There's another C-117. Typically, we don't see those too often here at Salt Lake City International Airport, but it's fun to see them. And for those who aren't too familiar with the geography of where we're at in Salt Lake City, it's in the northern part of Utah, but about 25, I don't know, just call it 20 minutes north, you have Hill Air Force Base, which is a Air Force base, an active military installation for the F-35. Looking at runway 34 right, we've got departures Salt Lake City to Jackson on a 319, getting ready to take the runway right there. Zoom out a little bit if we can. And then right behind that, we've got an A220-300 departing to Spokane on Delta 2988. Again, this is our first edition of streaming, so we're excited to be out here. We're still kind of learning our way and trying to make things smooth as possible for each of you who are tuning in. I know this is a lot of fun for you because it is an opportunity to see things live, of course, instead of waiting for me to put out a video. And we'll still put out videos as well as time goes on. But we wanted to try this out and see what our battery life is like. So we're looking eastwards. If you're just tuning in, and the inversion looks like it's getting a little less severe, so you can start to make out downtown Salt Lake in the distance. So we've got an arrival. And I can see there, barely in the inversion, as that A220 takes off to Spokane. Dueling arrivals and departures. It's either the Delta arrival from Minneapolis or Atlanta, it looks like. Just landed on runway 35. And I have to admit, as an aviation goober, geek, or whatever you want to call me, I love doing this stuff. So this was cool. And I got to give some credit definitely to um, Kevin down in Los Angeles, airline videos live for kind of doing this, and kudos to him for coming up with this concept. And I was like, this is a really good idea. So kudos to him. I would be rude of me not to give him credit where credit is due. And I know there are some others out there, but Salt Lake doesn't get enough credit that it does. It has 26 million passengers annually, I believe. And with the new concourses, I expect that to grow. And Delta has reached a long-term agreement for more gate space. So I wouldn't be shocked if Delta added more international flights here in Salt Lake City. But right now, they've got daily departures to Paris, Amsterdam, and London. Making our way shortly into our view will be Delta 2246, just departed out the gate, headed to San Diego. Or Ron Burgundy calls it San Diego. If you look at the live stream, if you do ever visit Salt Lake City International Airport, you've got those tracks there in the foreground. Those are what we call the tracks. So tracks is a light rail option if you fly into Salt Lake City and need to get downtown easily, which isn't too far away. Recommend taking tracks. There's only one line that goes out here to the airport. It's called the Green Line. And it's an easy, great option to check things out and get into downtown in about 10, 15 minutes at most. So just keep that in mind as we look at 2246 from Salt Lake to San Diego, heading off on a 22100. You can see tracks there scooting by in the foreground. So please, you could join us. People who are just turning in, feel free to say hi, where you're from, questions you have about Salt Lake City International Airport. Glad to answer them. And this is Pip's Planespotting Live at Salt Lake City International Airport. So thanks for tuning in. We are looking southeast at the runways 34 right and 35. Should be expecting Frontier Flight 571 arriving in the next 5 minutes. And then right behind that is Southwest 1109 at 9,300 feet, should be arriving in the next 7 minutes. Probably we'll see if they put them on runway 34 right, or if they do runway 35. 35 is the further of the two runways. So if you're looking for a visual reference, as I kind of pan out, the further east is runway 35. Don't know if anybody had a chance to check out some of the videos I put out this week, including the 24-hour farewell of the 747 as Boeing delivered their last 747 off the production line that they will ever make. And that was pretty cool to catch it, not only and shoot some photos of it, but to see them on their last test run out in Moses Lake, Washington. Most people aren't aware of Moses Lake, Washington, but they should be for good reason. Boeing has a huge presence there. They do a lot of testing, modifications, and really cool to be out there. And the good folks in Moses Lake work hard. The weather is extreme out there. It's kind of like a high desert like we have here in Salt Lake, but Moses Lake is pretty awesome. So it was cool to see that this past week. And then Boeing delivered their last 747 um, to Alice Air, last 747-8. Now it looks like ATC is going to slide Frontier to runway 34 left, so we're not going to see that. That breaks my heart. Don't they know that I'm broadcasting here, folks? We want good action. Unacceptable. Yeah, it looks like they're sending both the Frontier 571 and Southwest 1107 to runway 34 left. And wanted to stay on the east side today to try this out because I didn't want the sun in you guys, in you viewers' way. So we'll kind of rotate between the west and east runways depending on which day, and we'll update you on which runways we'll be on. Coming into our picture is Delta Flight 1094, Salt Lake City to Phoenix. Here in the 737-900 series, coming into view. We'll zoom in on that bad boy if we can. Whoops. So what are those things on the edge of the wings? So we'll talk about that in just a minute. There's kind of a cool reason for those. I think my arm got in the way on that one. Still testing everything out here. Let's zoom in on those C-117s for a second. That's just cool. It's 4:15 locally here. Looks like they're doing a lot of the departures on the east side and a lot of the arrivals on the west side. Making its way onto the runway is Delta Flight 3931 from Salt Lake City to FCA. Anybody know where FCA is? We'll tell you in 60 seconds. So FCA is Kalispell, Montana, right at the base of Glacier National Park in northern Montana. So during the summertime, there are a few places more beautiful, or in the springtime for that matter, than Glacier National Park, which borders Canada. So Kalispell is north of Missoula by about 2 hours. There's Delta Flight 56 on a 330-300 headed to Amsterdam. We mentioned before that Delta runs daily nonstops internationally out of Salt Lake to Amsterdam, Paris, and also London. And part of that reason is partly because Delta obviously is a hub for Salt Lake City, but with the presence of the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they send out thousands of missionaries every year throughout the globe. And for Amsterdam, that is Delta's hub of hubs, and Paris, where people can connect to other flights. So this is a 330-300, and earlier in the video we talked about the difference in the engine size, and you can kind of see that between a 330-300 and 200 and a 330-900 as it takes runway 34 right. So lining up behind that is JetBlue 1731 headed to Los Angeles, and Southwest 318 headed to Burbank. Thanks for tuning in. If it's all the way from Indonesia, hello, and thanks for tuning in. We're here in Salt Lake City. That's pretty awesome. So we're looking east on the east side of Salt Lake City International Airport. So we've got JetBlue getting ready to take the runway. JetBlue 1731 departing to LAX. Southwest 318 going to Burbank. And then Frontier 2943 headed to Phoenix. We told you we would update you on the arrivals. Looks like ATC is sending most of the arrivals onto runway 34 left on the west side, but we'll see if we can catch some and get lucky or fortunate. Next half hour scheduled arrivals 1309, Delta 1309 from St. Louis on an A220 100. Also expecting in the next half hour, Spirit Airlines, or just 40 minutes from now, Spirit 1790 in Orlando, from Orlando, and Southwest 420 on a 738 MAX on coming in from Baltimore. So a little bit of good variety going on. So we're going to talk about while we have a moment and seeing some of these departures line up. You see those little things on the end of the wings that are pointing up? Those are what are called winglets or sharklets. And a lot of the newer airplanes, you'll see them it's now commonplace, either the sharklets on the A320 or the winglets. And those have a very specific purpose. And it really is all about efficiency. Again, we talked about engines between the A330-900 and the A330-300. But those winglets provide, I think it's about 15 to 17% more efficient fuel burn. And I believe it also helps the pilots able to control the airplane a little bit better because that upward angle, and I'm not exact sure of the mechanics, help balance the airplane better, but also reduce the drag. And obviously, drag is a big thing that affects fuel performance. So by having these winglets on the edge of the wings, it reduces the drag of the airplane and improves fuel performance, and also maneuverability and flight, and they actually look pretty good. So there's a functional element to those little winglets pointing up at the edge of the airplane there on the A320, and also that 737-300, or excuse me, 700. If you're just tuning in, this is Pip Live. This is the first edition of Pip's Planespotting Live. Didn't put a lot of notice out on uh, this, but wanted to try and check things out. Here's we also see Southwest flight 2537 right there, making the turn, and also United Express flight 5383 operated by SkyWest headed to Chicago on the United Express, and then behind that is Delta 3717. And we actually have an arrival from Las Vegas. So we try and scope it out here in the inversion. There you go, Southwest flight. I believe it's 532 to Las Vegas, making an arrival on 34 right. That's what I always like to see. That's what we like to see, the close by runway. Easier to zoom in and get you a better angle. Amazing the amount of force those airplanes take when landing. Then head back over to the edge of the runway at 3-4 right. You get a 737 700 by Southwest, and then you've got two E175s. Embraer is a Brazilian manufacturer, and they make the E175. They also make the E195. And fun fact, uh, Porter Airlines, based out of Canada, they are the first ones here on the North American continent to operate the 195E2, the updated Embraer version of the 195 that also provides the larger engines, the better performance. And they are scheduled to start, I believe they started flying those this week, and they're going to start doing almost transcon service from Toronto all the way to Vancouver. So from the Middle East Coast, the Middle East Coast. So let's just say the Mid Atlantic and to Vancouver on the West Coast. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty noteworthy. So we see this United Express flight get ready to depart towards Chicago, and then the Delta 175 right behind it headed to Reno, which will be a quick hour flight. One unique thing about living out here in the West and being in Salt Lake is you have metropolis areas and then nothing close by, so bigger cities. So if you're watching on the East Coast, you're surrounded by cities and people, but outside the Wasatch Front in Salt Lake City, Provo, and Ogden, you really have nothing for about 400 miles. It's either 400 miles to Boise or 300 miles to Boise. It's about, driving wise at least, it's about 500 miles driving wise to Denver. It's about 400 miles to Las Vegas. So there's really outside of the metropolitan areas, there's a lot of isolation, which I think is kind of a unique thing. So if you're looking to buy land and be left alone, the West, great place to come out. Thanks for the likes, by the way. And you can support me on my other videos and donate via PayPal if you so choose. But regardless, I'm just thrilled you guys are tuning in because this is fun. Because we get to talk about aviation, we get to see things we like, get to do plane spotting, and that's pretty awesome to me. So thanks for tuning in, watching. So we see this flight to Reno take off. You can see there in the distance, we mentioned it before, excuse me, I'm going to adjust the tripod a little bit so we're a little bit higher. We're already 4,200 feet, by the way, in the atmosphere, so higher altitude. But as I was saying, if we look, you got the 135s, the tankers there, the KC-135s. It's part of the Utah Air National Guard. And then you also see, so you see their hangar over there, which is pretty cool. So a lot of the general aviation hangars are on the east side of the airport. And if you see those trucks there right in the middle, That is a de-icing pad for the east side of the airport, and those predominantly are contract crews. They're IDS, integrated de-icing solutions is what they're called, and they do a lot of the de-icing for the non-hub carrier, which of course here is Delta. So they do like Southwest, Frontier, United, JetBlue, and so they'll de-ice on that pad over there. So thanks for tuning in. This is Pip, by the way. This is Pip's Plane Spotting Live. Thanks for tuning in. We're here at Salt Lake City International Airport doing some plane spotting, nothing finer than that, and educating you about aviation tidbits, notes, news, and everything in between. It's arrival here from Delta on 34 right. First thrust. Spoilers armed. You can see the edge there. That is the new extension to the A concourses. We've got another arrival coming inbound. So I can see that the edge of that building, that's the new extension for the A concourse in Salt Lake City, most likely for Delta. But here's Delta 561 arriving from Orlando as we pan towards the right. And I'm working on trying to make things as smooth as possible. I don't have the top of the line tripod, but thank you for sticking with me here. Still think we got pretty good footage right here and doing my best. Now, it may be hard to believe, but I actually used to be in broadcasting. It was more radio than TV, and you could probably tell that. But this is coming in from Orlando on a 321. So here we are at Salt Lake City International Airport, looking east towards downtown. If it wasn't such a hazy day, you could see downtown. But you can't because of the inversion. So thanks for that, Mother Nature. We're also testing the battery life, by the way. So we'll see how that checks out. Right now, folks, if you're wondering what I'm running here, it is a Canon R7 with a 100-400 lens. Trying out getting as much zoom possible for you, but it'll be a little bit shakier as far as stabilization. So I may switch to a 55-250 lens or go back to my camcorder. But right now I've got a Canon R7 that is broadcasting. Thanks for the review on the footage beef enchilada. I appreciate it. I'm glad to hear that. And we're going to try and make some upgrades too, so that we can maybe get 60 frames, maybe a little bit clearer. Right now we're broadcasting in 1080p here. I'm going to zoom in on that arrival. See what kind of aviation jet we've got. What we got there? Very interesting. Looks like a Bombardier Global 6000 or 3000 because it had the kind of the same look as the CRJ 700. But it doesn't have the livery of, say, a normal airline. So we're looking at probably a Bombardier Global Express 3000 and 6000. Can't kind of tell from that distance. And don't know corporate aviation as well as I should. But we'll get it put together. Sounds pretty cool. So as I was mentioning, we are here on the east side of Salt Lake City International Airport, and I just want to give a quick shout out to the uh, the guys who are already doing things live. Kudos to them, um, Kevin and Max. You guys are out in LA, and I may take a visit out to LA, but we got other airports to go to, and this is my home airport in Salt Lake City. So I wanted to give you guys a bunch of credit because you certainly deserve it. But thanks so much for uh, the broadcasting. Yeah, and Beef Enchilada, thank you so much for the report on the audio. Actually, what I've got going on is a little creativity. It's something I used to for my flight simulator setup. If you've seen some of my flight simulator videos, I don't do a whole lot of talking on the flight simulator videos, but I will. But what I've got is a headset. I've got a Bose QC35, and it was the only edition that they made that had a boom mic that came down from the actual earphones. So it's like I'm broadcasting. So that way, I've got both hands free, so I can do the broadcast. And uh, the trade off is right now I've got set up for um, the talking so I can be clear and precise, but then we lose some of the audio from the jet engines and from the natural sound. So that's what we're broadcasting with right now. I personally like it. So yeah, they're hard to find. I bought it, I think, on closeout, but I thought it would be a good addition to the Microsoft Flight Simulator setup. But then I was thinking about it when I was doing this streaming, is saying, you know what, this might be a good idea because I used to be in radio broadcasting, so I'm used to having a headset and that boom mic next to your mouth so you can have your hands free. So that's currently what I'm broadcasting with is a Bose QC35 with a mic extension from the earphones. And so I'm glad to hear that the audio sounds super clean. And I really appreciate you mentioning that. So we may stick with that. In the meantime, we are looking east, southeast, and Salt Lake City, more the industrial area. But here we are at Salt Lake International Airport. Thanks for people who are just tuning in for the day or have come in. See, we've got an American flight. That looks like it'll be headed to Dallas based on that 321. It is American 1456, an A321 200 series, is headed to Dallas here shortly as it makes the turn to runway 34. So we'll zoom in on that if we can for you and get some good footage. And beef enchilada, the other question, I neglected to mention it, but I am actually not indoors. I am actually outside. It's 40 degrees. I am on top of the parking garage at Salt Lake City International. So thank you for the question and the feedback. So American flight headed to Dallas on an A321. When we say these numbers, they correspond. Some people may be tuning in for the first time and they're not too familiar with aviation. So we'll break down some of the aviation differences between the different airplane sizes and models because we just say these numbers if you're into aviation and people are like, what? What is that? So for example, this plane that we're zooming in right here, the United Express delivery on this one, it's a what we call the brand is the Embraer E175. Right on, beef enchilada. That's where I came from. Actually, was DFW working for Envoy, so that's pretty awesome. And I went to IFOD, of course, for the Institute for Flight Operations and Dispatch. So how was the ice storm? I didn't know if you were working, but that was pretty messy. I was talking to my family about that and keeping track of things. And my buddy Morgan, who you see on some of the videos, he was working as well and had to take it slow driving in. So how was that ice storm, beef enchilada? And so, as I mentioned, the Embraer is a model of plane, just like Boeing or Airbus. So, like when you have car manufacturers, you obviously have Ford, Chevy, Toyota, Honda. Of course, they're airplane manufacturers, and really you've got the big two, and then Embraer is like a third. So Embraer is a Brazilian manufacturer, and they do a lot of the regional jets that you may fly into the smaller cities. Like, for example, this United Express flight that is headed to where are we heading on this one? Down to Houston on 5566 flight 5566 to Houston. So they Embraer does a lot of the regional jets. So this one, for example, typically carry about 76 passengers, 80 passengers, about that. And they're in 195. I think is like one depending on the configuration, 110, 105. Overall. So Embraer is one manufacturer you'll see in the 175 a lot out of Salt Lake. So beef enchilada shut down for a day, and that is probably a wise idea to shut down and do that, especially when you're loading um, those cargo containers. Yeah, and so glad you were safe because that's no fun. So battery life, we have been broadcasting now for just over an hour. So it looks like we're going to get 2 hours or close to it out of this broadcast, or a little bit further. We'll see how long we can stretch it. We may uh, sneak in a new battery and see how we can work that out so we can still have a continuous live stream and not end the stream and update it. But we'll see what we can come up with. But we'll shoot for 2 hours, which is kind of like a good movie. So I'll try and make it the most entertaining. Some laughing, some crying here at Salt Lake International Airport. Just me, Pip, broadcasting live. This is Pip's Planespotting Live. We wanted to do a test run, and I think so far it's going pretty well. So we're going to make this a regular when we can do it. I'll give some more advance notice to you subscribers and everybody. And we're thrilled to have you aboard. If you can tune in for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the entire broadcast, if you're at work, that's pretty awesome. So we're not getting any arrivals. As you see, the Delta 3443 right there headed to Missoula, Montana. Let's zoom out a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit more. We got another A220 right there. So that is an Airbus. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Still getting the directions down. Apologize for that. But that is an Airbus A220, so another manufacturer. But most people are not aware that the 220 actually was originally the Bombardier CS100 and CS300. And Bombardier is a Canadian manufacturer. Sorry, guys. There we go. Is a Canadian manufacturer that ran into some funding issues. And so Airbus bought a majority stake in the CS 100 300 program. So now it's now an Airbus. So no longer a Bombardier CS 100 300. It is an Airbus A220 100 300, which some of you may not know that. But if you didn't, I'm glad to give you something new. So here's another interesting fact. There are an increasing number of air carriers in North America that currently run the A220. It is Delta, of course, the largest. Then you have JetBlue, Breeze Airways, the newest airline to operate the A220 and the newest airline overall. And then also in Canada, you've got Air Canada that operates the A220. So it'd be weird if Canada, which was so integral in helping the survival, didn't operate. That would be kind of weird. But anyways, so that's the A220 right there, staring right at you in the face. We're staring the backside of it, and it's personally one of my favorite planes. And here's something cool about the 220 is because it now is an Airbus, it's got the side stick. Well, they actually did have the side stick configuration for flying already when it was the CS 100 300. But that's one of the cool things that you'll see. So it integrates very well into the Airbus lineup because it's got the side stick configuration for flying for the pilots, as opposed to like a Boeing yoke, which is, if you're just tuning in, a yoke or a side stick, that's basically like a steering wheel, and in certain aspects, partially for flying. So right now that 22100 is waiting for, I believe, Delta Flight 1309. See if they're arriving. Yeah, we'll see them shortly arrive on runway 34 right. We'll zoom out a little bit and see if we can get them shortly. We'll see them off in the distance as it breaks through the clouds. We're expecting some precipitation, a mixture of rain and snow. So if you're headed to Salt Lake tomorrow, might be a good idea to get out, just bring an umbrella just in case, and some boots. We're expecting a mixture of rain and snow. So just FYI on the weather report. And there's that Delta 220 flight inbound from St. Louis. So we'll zoom in on that and enjoy that arrival. All right, so that's that A220 flight coming inbound from St. Louis at Delta. We get some traffic here lining up, both regional and the 220 down there. And thanks for everybody for tuning in for the first time, and we'll update things as they go along. And we'll obviously put better updates on when we're going to be broadcasting. Speaking of which, if you'd like to subscribe, I'd love to have you. And that way you'll be in the know when we'll be broadcasting next and where we'll be broadcasting. Because Salt Lake is unique in that they have a terminal in basically the center of the property, and then they've got runways, parallel runways on both sides. So you've got a west side of the airport and an east side of the airport. And so what we're looking at right now is the east side of the airport, and that's runways 34 right, which is where these regional jets, these 175s that we'll zoom in on, are lining up for. And then you also have runway 35 on the far end, the most eastern runway, that typically takes in mostly private jets and some military. And then on the west side, you've got runway 34 left, 16 right, 34 left, excuse me. And so you've got parallel runways. And so ATC does a really good job. And the configuration is set up well that they can kind of split traffic between departures and also arrivals, which is one of the things we'll probably talk about as time goes on. So now that I know that I got about 2 hours, we'll try and make the 2 hours the most productive in trying to get a variety of planes and airlines, so you get some variety, and also so that I'm give you lots of good information. Because I hope that when you tune in, I add something to your day. It's not just about plane spotting, but it's also about educating you, sharing information. Because after all, uh, I did work in aviation and still want to. As we see the in the distance, Cessna Citation arriving from Boeing Field. But it's about educating each of you about aviation because I absolutely love it. And so if I can give you information that you're better informed, that means a lot to me. So that's what we'll try and do in these 2 hours that we have each time we'll do plane spotting and inform you, entertain and inform. Thanks for everybody who's tuning in. It is Pip's Plane Spotting Live first edition, and Beef Enchilada is the number one fan right now, folks. So kudos to him. Inbound, we've got in the next 5 minutes, we should expect inbound, see if Spirit Airlines makes an appearance, Flight 1790 inbound from Orlando. And we definitely could use some color on this gray day. So we'll see if Spirit makes an appearance on runway 34 right. And that's one of the things I want to also integrate to is ATC traffic if I can, and we're going to work on that as well. So hopefully we can integrate that as well, either by walkie-talkie or other sources. Those two flights, Delta 33 or 3837 taking the runway, and then also Delta 905 on a 321 right behind that, departing to Atlanta. And I do see Spirit 1709 there in the distance arriving, so we could use some nice color on this great day. So hopefully we'll catch that arrival for you folks and make it a little more entertaining. But I do love the 321. I used to not like it because it looked like a wannabe 757, but I've really come to appreciate it, especially if you get the 321 Neo. That's a pretty cool airplane. That one right there is getting ready to head to Atlanta cross country. So, in case you're wondering and you're tuning in from across the globe, between Atlanta and Salt Lake City, there is a 2 hour time difference right now. So, if it's 5 o'clock, or it is 7 o'clock in Atlanta right now, because I do know there are some people who are tuning in for overseas, and that's pretty awesome. So, if you are tuning in, let me know where you're tuning in from because I do love geography and talking information. I don't want this just to be a silent conversation. Hopefully, I can entertain and have good conversations with you guys, and we really appreciate you tuning in on that. So we make our way towards the sky. Kind of look for this guy's that Spirit. There you go. Tell you one thing about Spirit is you will definitely notice their airplanes. So probably one of the greatest advertisers, self-advertisements there are is just the paint scheme or the livery. This is an A320, so an Airbus A320 Neo. So the new engine option. See how that diameter shakes out. So smooth and quiet too. As we head back towards the east end, or excuse me, the south end of the airport, and runway 34 right, we've got Delta 906 taking the runway. I just like to zoom in it for kicks. See, if you go back and look at the video, you can see the difference as far as the diameter in the and circumference, excuse me, of the engines. So you can kind of see the difference between the Neo, the new engine option, and the old one for Airbus and the Airbus engines. Welcome in, everyone, for just tuning in. I am Pip. Thank you for tuning in. It is 35 degrees here in Salt Lake City, and you are watching live action from the east side of Salt Lake City International Airport, both arrivals and departures. Salt Lake is in the top 30 as far as total employment and deployment, as far as total passengers each year. So it's one of the busy airports and one of Delta's hub. If you're not too familiar with Salt Lake City, they're probably um, one of the airports you may connect through if you're headed to smaller cities like Reno, Kalispell, Tucson, Arizona, Colorado Springs. Also, so a lot of the West, Spokane, you'll probably connect through that if you're on the East Coast. They run flights to Hawaii. You can go nonstop from Salt Lake City to Honolulu. We saw earlier an Airbus headed to Kauai. So they do run to Hawaii. They also run south of the border to Mexico, so Puerto Vallarta, Mexico City, so Mexico as well. So Salt Lake's kind of that western hub, and along with Los Angeles. Oh, and also I did not mention it, but Seattle is really becoming a hub for Delta and Boston. So that's what we're looking at. New Zealand, love it. Thank you so much for saying hi, Coaster Boy. I appreciate that, and I hope that the rains have subsided. We were watching. I was watching this past week. I think it was a week and a half. They had to shut down the airport, or there was flooding at the airport, so they couldn't get any flights in. So I hope that the things have subsided and the rain isn't as prevalent, because that was uh, really sad to see the flooding inside the airport and whatnot. And so I hope everything is okay. But thanks for saying hi and tuning in. We'll love it. Love it. Love how the internet is kind of making the world a little bit smaller in some ways. And this is just a lot of fun to do this. So Beef Enchilada told me that I hope he doesn't mind shining a light on him, but he had subscribed because of some of the dispatch videos I do. And so basically, a little bit about myself is I used to be a radio reporter and news anchor, and then I went back to school when I was 30. When I say 36, my friend suggested I go back into school for flight dispatching because I tried to go into the Air Force, but was not able to. But he suggested, so that was back in 2018, that I went back to school for technical school for flight dispatching for the to get your FAA certificate. Now, each country has their own different requirements for certain flying, but in the United States, the FAA license is kind of the license that you want to have, that other countries will send their dispatchers or flight followers to. And So I was a flight dispatcher for 4 years for both a regional and a mainline carrier. And now I'm kind of stepping away to pursue a graduate degree. So perhaps maybe I can be a leader. I miss flight dispatching a lot. I didn't realize how much I'd miss it. I loved it to begin with, but so now I'm in school, but with this on the side, I'm doing this as well, and still doing videos. So yeah, beef enchilada. I would recommend. There's a lot of great schools out there for flight dispatching. I know I mentioned, because you're in Dallas, I would recommend the Institute of Flight Operations or Dispatch, and so it's called a IFOD. So India Foxtrot Oscar Delta, and it's located in Irving, so not too far from DFW Airport. Also, ATP is a good school. You also have Sheffield in Florida is one that gets a lot of recognition. But for me, I know in running into people, a lot of people I run into in the flight dispatching world and operations, a good majority went to IFOD. I loved my experience there. Uh, Out here in Salt Lake, there's a school in St. George called Aircraft Dispatch Academy, or ADA. But for me, I really enjoyed iPhone, and if you like Dallas or in the Dallas area, I would personally recommend them. And it's the classes are can be taken online or you can do in person. I'm an in-person learner, so at the time when I did my classes, I was 2018, so that was um, uh, 2018. It was about 2 months to get my license. There are certain FAA mandates on how long you have to be in class for. And you also have to pass an oral and written exam to get your license to be a flight dispatcher. So hope that gives you the background. The cost was like $6,000, so not too bad. And if people are tuning in and they want to be in aviation, maybe flight dispatching in the U.S., typically the starting out pay, you're going to usually start working for like a private carrier. Sure, no problem. Beef enchilada, you're going to work for a private carrier or a regional carrier, so a smaller one. So like I like to call it the minor leagues because right, so like the major airlines like Delta, United, Southwest, um, those are really the big leagues. So the money's better, the benefits are better, and but they typically look for somebody who has experience. Well, how are you going to get experience? You're going to work in the minor leagues, so the regional airlines, and sadly, the pay there's a huge discrepancy on, and that's something that's always talked about, but nothing's really ever changed with it. But it's kind of like the learn to earn way of thinking. So typically in the United States, if you're interested in flight dispatching, you're probably either hourly or salary or wage. You're gonna be, um, let's call it mid 30s, maybe 40, maybe a little more than that. I know there are a few exceptions to that rule, but as an overall, if you want to work for regional airline, which gives you flight benefits, right, which is kind of a sweet perk, you're talking probably, yeah, mid 30s, 30,000, 35,000. The pay's come up obviously with inflation and all that, but it's still got a long way to go. So when I first started at Envoy in 2018, I made $14.80. So that was 28.8. And that was a pretty big pay cut from the other place I was working, but I wanted to do it, and it gave me the experience to move on. And I did it for 3 years and loved it. And Envoy is owned by American Holy, by the way. But yeah, so $14.80, which I think is what they're offering now for like Taco Bell and McDonald's. So uh, it's gotten a little bit better. Envoy's at $19 and change. Also, SkyWest is like 2038, I think. Republic's like 2122. So yeah, that translates to high 30s, maybe low 40s with overtime and whatnot. So yeah, I hope that helps a little bit. If you're just tuning in, this is Pip Planespotting live from Salt Lake City International Airport. This is the first edition, so we're trying to get things shaked out, but we're thrilled to have you on board. Um, yeah, could not be happier. I mean, the weather could be better. I'd love to show you downtown Salt Lake, but we can't even see it. So perhaps on another time. And we're on the east side of the airport. We're looking towards runways 3, 4, and I know I've said that a million times, but viewers come and go. Um, and if we go here and you look over those C-117s, over by those C-117s in the distance, that's runway 35. So 3, 4 right, 16 and 7, um, yeah, 1735 and 1634. So that's kind of where we're at currently. So we're on top of the parking garage at Salt Lake City International Airport. And depending on the weather, we will probably later this week. I think we're going to be heading down to Phoenix perhaps for some Super Bowl plane spotting. We'll see. Finances have to work, but that would be a lot of fun. A lot of corporate jets and a lot of interesting people, a lot of traffic there. The Super Bowl is in Phoenix this upcoming weekend. But depending on that, we'll probably try to do either a weekday edition or a weekend edition here in Salt Lake each week. And we'll be in different places. Next week, we'll probably see if we can do the west side. So run arrivals on 16 right and 34 left. So that's pretty cool. So uh, that's kind of where we're at right now. Is we've got see how the battery life is doing. I think we can make it to 6 o'clock. So we've got some good battery life as we hit 2 hours or a minute 40 right now, folks. And that's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm really pleased to have you. So yeah, thrilled to have you. And if you know somebody who loves this, share this with them because we'd love to have them on board because we want to entertain, inform, have a great conversation. And United 354 from Delta with the new livery is just around the corner. So we'll zoom in on that as Delta 723 headed to uh, Chicago there is in the foreground right there. We're going to look and turn our attention here briefly to catch that new livery, United. And I do think United did an excellent job picking a new livery. I hated the Continental United hybrid, brown and yellow. It just disgusting. So I'm thrilled with the new livery that they've done. In case you're wondering, it is about 35, 36 degrees. And so far, the equipment seems to be working pretty well, but we'll have to monitor that because we're not invincible here and the weather is cold. So 36 degrees, I think, is like 2 degrees centigrade. So if you're watching abroad, it's a little chilly. This is Airbus A319 arriving. Oops, excuse me, didn't mean to get out of focus there, folks. Just probably zoomed down a little too fast. So, if you're just tuning in, this is Pip's Planespotting live in Salt Lake City. But if you do ever fly into Salt Lake City, as we kind of get a little better visibility, I want to warn you if you do not fly a Delta flight, what might happen is you'll be in the marathon of your life. Because when you check into Salt Lake, it's kind of like a Denver layout, except there's no train to take you to Concourse B. So there's an underground terminal that you have to walk the whole way if you're flying a United, JetBlue, Spirit, Southwest, Frontier flight here in Salt Lake City. So you're going to walk from security probably close to a mile to get to your gate. It's a layout in Denver, similar to Denver, where they have concourses, parallel concourses. But if you need to get to your flight in Concourse B, you need to budget about 25, call it 20, 25 minutes. So when Salt Lake designed this airport, they made a deal with the devil. I mean Delta, to, to let Delta have all of Concourse A. I guess that's what you get for being a hub. You get to flex your muscles or make deals or things like that. But Delta has Concourse A, and everybody else is in Concourse B. So, just a word of advice if you're just tuning in, Salt Lake City International Airport may soon become the fittest airport because of all the walking people have to do. So, yeah, it's about close to a mile from security to your gates in Concourse B, and there is no train to run you through the concourses. There's a couple of moving walkways, but that's it. So, just a little bit of note, just a little fun fact for you. And we're looking in here, tuning in. That is Delta 9963 departing. So a repo flight most likely headed to Los Angeles. Thanks for everybody tuning in and liking. Really means a lot to me. And if you're watching again on replay, I hope that I gave you some good information. We're here at Salt Lake City International Airport. It is just after 5 o'clock. We'll probably be here for about a half an hour more. I think the sun is going to set just shy of 6 o'clock. Let's see if we've got any more arrivals and entertainment I can bring you over the next 30 minutes here on what is scheduled to depart and what is scheduled to arrive. So 5 o'clock looks like it's a pretty light hour for arrivals, but we are expecting a good number of departures from Frontier, from Delta, from Southwest, from, let's see if there's anybody else. Yeah, so we may be wrapping things up here in the half hour. So if you do have a question, feel free to ask it in the chat. We love having you tuning in to the first ever edition of Pip's Plane Spotting. Hopefully, we'll get more support and we'll be able to travel across the country and do things like this and more entertaining things that will help you guys out and entertain you and help spawn your love for aviation. And I am telling you, folks, it is getting cold. My feet are freezing. So I probably should have worn an extra pair of socks. I did not think about it. This is poor job on my part. Coming into view shortly, I'll zoom out so you can see it a little bit better, is something you won't see for too much longer in the aviation world. It is that jet right there. So that is, let's zoom in a little bit on it. And it's not the jet itself, it's who they're flying for. So that looks like a Mesa jet. And it is, in fact, and it is a American flight. And for those who aren't too familiar with what's going on in aviation, Mesa is ending its agreement, or American is ending its agreement with Mesa. So Mesa will no longer fly for American, and I think that agreement goes into effect in April. So I think it's actually kind of funny that Mesa doesn't even have the livery; they just have the generic Mesa on their, oh, sorry, folks, on their tail. Yeah, and one thing I'll say about this camera is it does not like dark. So we're going to try and focus on the daytime because sometimes it has focusing in. So if you can kind of see there, see how close I can get zoomed in on that. Yeah, so you can see kind of in that tail, it just says Mesa. Now, Mesa flies right now for United. and they were flying for American. But the whole crux of the story is they are no longer flying for Mesa, or excuse me, American Airlines come, I believe, March or April. So one of the last couple of weeks that we will see an American branded flight. This is headed to Phoenix. This is flight 5785 headed to Phoenix, an American flight. Southwest 737 MAX 8 landing in from Baltimore that just flew by us. It's pretty cool. And in case you heard, another news story to keep an eye on, Boeing, of course, ended production this week on the 747, and they are shutting down production of that. However, they are moving Boeing 737 MAX production into that where Boeing into the 730, or excuse me, the 747 production hangars. So basically, what happens if you're not too familiar with Seattle? There are a couple of locations in Seattle where Boeing produces airplanes. One of those is in Everett, which is about 30 minutes north of Seattle, and that is where they produce the Dreamliner. They produce the 777X that's upcoming. That, by the way, you can see a sneak peek of on my channel when I was landing. And they'll now also produce the Dreamliner, the 777, and will now be producing the 737 Max as well in Everett. So that's 30 minutes north of Seattle. Then, if you go about 10 minutes south of Seattle, you hit Boeing Field, which has a delivery center for the 737 Max as well. And that's where they parked a lot of them when the whole 737 debacle happened. So they produce that as well down there, and they do testing, and that's where they have the Museum of Flight is at Boeing Field. So that is 10 minutes south of Seattle. Then another 10, 15 minutes south is Renton. And Renton is where they produce the 737 MAX. So they have all the facilities to produce the 737 MAX there. So what they're going to do is increase the production to two locations, Renton and Everett, to produce the 737 Max, and that was just announced this week by Boeing. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and thought you might be aware of that. Beefy Tacos, what's up? A lot of tacos, enchiladas, tacos. This is good stuff as we've got an arrival inbound to us here at Salt Lake City International Airport. Tacos are good. Maybe that's what I'll have for dinner. I heard there was like Chinese food too at my church, but it's the year of the rabbit, but just in case. But that's off subject. So it looks like Airbus. I did not look. I apologize. I was too busy pontificating about Boeing. But this looks like an Airbus and A320, it appears. And if you'll notice as well, folks, you're wondering what kind of camera I'm using. This is a Canon R7, and it starts to flutter when things get dark. So it's actually an A3, is it an A3 A19? Yeah, it looks like that, A319. So, but this camera doesn't do well in lower light, so I apologize if it like fades out briefly as we were. And there's another Airbus A330 getting ready to depart. I believe this one is headed to London. So let's verify that. And you can, of course, keep track of these planes on FlightAware or FlightRadar. Looking to get one more like today to get to 10. That would mean a lot to me and my mom because She doesn't think I do anything right, but that Airbus A330 that is in fact headed to London on Delta Airlines flight 50. Meanwhile, inbound, Southwest Flight 5100 from Long Beach to Salt Lake City on a 737-700. We'll catch that. Is just around the corner. Headed A330-300 taking off there on flight 50, headed to London. Jolly good show. Behind that Frontier, an A320 Neo headed to Denver. Head towards the bottom of the hour. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Looking for one more like to get to 10 on the live stream. We're thrilled to have you here at Salt Lake City International Airport. Got about, we're going to call it, we'll probably end the broadcast about 5:30 local time. So another 7-8 minutes, maybe a little bit past that, but call that. But I'd say we had a pretty good day here, folks. This is the first of Pip's plane spotting, and a lot of fun today, folks. Lot of fun, and just absolutely thrilled that you could participate and be a part of it and enjoy everything. I feel like I should change my name to like chicken tortilla soup or something with you guys. Beefy tacos and beef enchilada. Thanks for everybody tuning in on this first plane spotting here as we start to hit the evening here. Just past 5, headed towards the bottom of the hour, 5:30. If you know somebody who's interested and likes live plane spotting, send them over to my way, my channel. And plus, I've got videos on dispatching, on flight simulator, also a host of plane spotting videos from close to 50 airports across the country. I've got a huge variety that I try. I'm trying to be like the plane spotting king, the man. You know what I mean? So there's a variety of plane spotting videos that you can take a look at on my channel. So I've got a whole list. I'll just give you the list. Seattle, SeaTac, Painfield, Portland, Boise, Vancouver, Canada, Salt Lake City, of course, Provo, Chicago O'Hare, St. Louis, Missouri, Dallas Fort Worth, Albuquerque, Phoenix, Los Angeles, LAX, Burbank, Long Beach, and also John Wayne, Anaheim, San Francisco International, San Jose, Sacramento, Orlando, Charlotte, Atlanta. What else do I have on the East Coast? Boston, Hartford, Bradley International, JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, Philadelphia. Yeah, we got quite a bit. Also, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Intercontinental, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Omaha. We try and hit the heartland, so we're trying to hit them all. Minneapolis, there is a lot to still get to, but we're talking close to 50 different airports for plane spotting. So I hope you take a look at that. And thanks for everybody for tuning in here as we're trailing out. We'll probably cut it off about 5:30 and still got about half battery life. So I think we can probably get a little over 2 hours. So pretend that you are watching a movie today and I'll make you cry. I'll make you laugh, entertain and inform. That's 2 hours well spent. So thanks for tuning in. As we've got this 321 departing. 2317 headed to Los Angeles. So if anybody has any more questions, ask them in the next 2 or 3 minutes. Otherwise, we'll be cutting it off at just past 5:30. So thanks everybody for tuning in. You guys rock, and hopefully I'll update more in advance so more people will tune in. I know it was kind of last second, but thrilled and pumped to have each one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a 60-second countdown. So thanks to everybody who could attend and make this broadcast here at Salt Lake International Airport for the first of what is to be many Pip's Plane Spotting Lives. Thanks to myself, Pip, for making this happen. Also, thank you to GoogleFi. Thank you to Canon. Thank you to my mom. Thank you to all of my subscribers who have tuned in and who are subscribing. Encourage you to check out all my videos because it's a little bit of everything. But it's been a good conversation today. We will update you on when I will be doing plane spotting next. Hopefully, I'm guessing in the next week, but we'll update you and I'll put out a little video teaser on when we're going to be broadcasting. So watch out for that. So if you are a subscriber, you'll be aware of when we'll do broadcasting next. But for now, this is Pip saying, have a good night from Salt Lake City and across the world. We will talk to you later this week. Thanks, Beef Enchilada. Have a good one yourself, and we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the videos, and we'll talk to you next broadcast.